Welcome into the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, and we are live from Nashville, Tennessee. A lot to cover on today's show because there are big visit weekends going on all around the country. We're going to go talk to Azuby Charles. That's where we're going to go first. We're going to go to Azuby Charles with CaneSport. Then we got EJ Holland with the Wolverine. Yeah, that's right. We got Michigan recruiting to talk about on the show. We got Chad Simmons, Director of Recruiting at On3. He has some five-star intel on the top 2026 names. And then we got interviews. We got some big interviews. We got Zion Elee, the #1 player in the 2026 class. We got Brandon Arrington, On3's #8 player in the 2026 class. And of course, they both came on here and they both name leaders. Gotta love it when we get recruits on here and they're willing to name a leader. So you're gonna want to check out those. But before we get going, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. We want you guys locked in for the stretch run. So go ahead and hit subscribe. All right, let's take a look at the On3 recruiting rankings. Guys, without fail, somebody mentions that these rankings seem crazy off. Well, guess what? It's a recruiting show. So these are the recruiting rankings. Alabama on top. You got Ohio State at 2. Georgia there at 3 after landing 5-star Elijah Griffin last week. They moved up a couple spots from #5. LSU and Auburn round out that top 5. Now, remember, Alabama, they flipped big old tight end Marshall Pritchett from UNC. That solidifies them in the #1 spot. Texas at 6, Oregon at 7, Tennessee 8, A&M 9, Miami surging at 10. You got 11 USC, Michigan at 12. Remember, Michigan landed 5-star Andrew Babalola on Monday. Huge news there. That's why we got EJ Holland on the show. We're going to talk about it. FSU down to 18. Washington rounds out the top 20 at #20. Okay, big show. Let's get to it. We got to talk some Miami Hurricane recruiting as their rival Florida State comes to town, but this isn't just any rivalry game. Florida State limps into town. After beating the brakes off of Miami the last couple of years, it looks like Mario Cristobal is ready to flip the script, and Miami looks great this year. They are undefeated, and they got recruits on campus. We're going to talk to Azuby Charles from CaneSport about some of these major flip targets that are going to be in Miami this weekend. But, guys, before we get going, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we love talking Miami Hurricane recruiting. All right, let's bring in Azuby Charles. Azuby, we know Miami's trying to pack the stands with elite recruits in this one. First of all, what's the environment going to be like at kickoff, and how many recruits do we think are going to be on the sidelines for this one?
I think this is going to be the best environment that Mario Cristobal has had, over his last 3 years being the head coach of Miami. Obviously, like you mentioned, the success that the program is having this year, the people in South Florida are ready to, get Hard Rock packed. And, that's been a thing that they've been pushing this week, pack Hard Rock. And I think there's going to be over 100 recruits on that sideline watching this matchup. This, to me, is the biggest recruiting weekend for the Miami Hurricanes. You have your in-state rival, your biggest rival coming into town, a program that you share a lot of recruiting battles with, and Miami's making sure they pack out that recruiting section this weekend.
Yeah, Mario Cristobal has done a phenomenal job since he's arrived on campus of getting this roster to a place where it is today, where it looks like they are on the verge of really doing something terrible to their rival in front of a lot of recruits. And here's the flip targets that are going to be on campus. We got DJ Pickett, Solomon Thomas, Ben Hanks, TJ Alford, Jarquez Carter, Shamar Arnaud. There's going to be more, but I want to talk about some of these because there's some big ones. So out of the flip targets that are going to be on campus, who do you think is the most important? Like, which position of need could Miami fill with one of these big names?
I think I'm going to group in those 3 defensive backs that you mentioned, DJ Pickett, Ben Hanks, and Shamar Arnaud, kind of in that order. DJ Pickett's been Miami's guy, for the entirety of this cycle. And despite him committing to LSU, they still continue to push and kind of put that full court press on him. He's had this game circled since the summer, so it's great to see him following through with those plans. I know he was supposed to visit LSU 2 weeks ago, but things fell through. He didn't end up, taking that trip to Baton Rouge. So, take that as you will. But, huge development getting him to get on campus. And then you move on to Ben Hanks, the Florida commit. Miami absolutely loves him, wants to keep him home. And they've been doing a lot of things with him. Got him on campus for the Virginia Tech game, getting him back now. And then Shamar Arnaud, kind of later in the cycle, they offered him. Coach Travis Jackson went to go see him. Mario Cristobal has his hands all over this recruitment as well. A South Florida native, getting him back down where he's from. So I think this is going to be a huge weekend for that defensive back class.
Yeah, and LSU having a good season, but Florida and USC both kind of on shaky ground right now. So Arnaud and Ben Hanks could be key visitors this weekend, but of course, getting DJ Pickett on campus the number of times that Miami has already, just something to keep an eye on. And I agree with you. Hey, there's probably a great reason why he missed that LSU visit, but he still missed that LSU visit. And there's only so many games you can make it to during the season, and he's found a way to make it down to Miami for a bunch of them. All right, so heading into this weekend, who do you think on this list Miami probably has the most work to do just as we head in? Because, hey, coming out could be a different story.
Yeah, I'd have to go with Florida State commit Solomon Thomas. Miami's been working quietly behind the scenes with Thomas, and I spoke with him for a brief moment on Sunday. He said, hey, I'm most likely making that trip down to South Florida, watch C2's teams. Obviously committed to the Seminoles and kind of their crown jewel in that 2025 class, being a high-rated prospect, under Coach Mike Norvell right now. But Miami has a lot of work to do, in my opinion, with Solomon Thomas. But if he ends up showing up on campus on Saturday, I think that's a great sign for the Hurricanes moving forward.
Yeah, because it's kind of always been more LSU. If anybody's going to flip him, maybe it's LSU. But Miami continue to talk to him, and now if they can get him on campus for this game and beat FSU in front of him, that could go a long way. All right. Now, so we know about the flip targets, but there's also going to be some really important 2026 recruits on campus. And this is kind of where the groundwork gets laid for these future early commitments and early leaders. So who are the important names that Miami fans should know heading into this weekend?
Yeah, the first name I want to mention is one that Miami fans are kind of familiar with. It's Camden Portis, a 2026 cornerback, the son of, former Miami running back Clinton Portis. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's in that Hurricanes 2026 class by the time this weekend's over. And then some other guys, 2026 Florida State commits, a pair of them, Darius Hughes out of South Dade and Darian Williams out of Plant High School in the Tampa area. Two guys in that Florida State 2026 class that are going to be there. This will be Hughes' second look at Miami this year and Williams' first look. And he has some interest in the Canes. And then moving on that list, 2026 wide receiver Devin Carter, who's actually the son of Florida State legend Dexter Carter, former first-round pick for the Seminoles. He'll be back in Miami this weekend. Got guys like Cannon Pickett as well. We all know about that connection with DJ, Deuce Geralds, and a few, 2026 local guys in Jabari Flowers and Javian Mallory. So a ton of 2026 guys that Miami's really getting involved with early and try to lay that foundation for next year's class as well.
All right, Miami fans, talk to us. Let us know your score predictions in the comment section below. Also, who's your top flip target heading into this big rivalry weekend? Let us know, comment section below. Let's talk some five-star recruiting. The 2026 class got updated on Monday for On3, and we've been featuring this class more and more. So in this video, I got On3's director of recruiting, Chad Simmons. We're going to run down which teams are in it for the top recruits in the 2026 class. We are going to get some information in today. But first, guys, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we want you to be a part of it. So jump on board. Hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in director of recruiting here at On3, Chad Simmons. Chad, we might as well start at the top. A new number one, because Jakeem Stewart reclassified. He was our number one in 26. He's now in the 25 class. So the new number one is Zion Elee. He was on this channel just yesterday talking about how Oregon, along with Maryland, are two teams at the top. Now, Zion Elee, though, told me he's in no rush to decide. This probably isn't going to come until sometime in his senior season. So who else are you watching with number one overall Zion Elee?
Yeah, I think with him, you have to kind of just follow the visits. Where does he go next? He's been, like you said, Maryland over the weekend, had a great time there, Oregon a couple weeks ago, and now those two have kind of emerged as two favorites for him. He'll be at Auburn here soon. He wants to check out other schools. He's mentioned LSU, Georgia, Alabama. He grew up a fan of Alabama as well. So I think a lot of schools are still in play. The biggest, change or twist for Elee in recent weeks has been he was on the verge of committing, late in the summer, early in the fall. Now, as you said, Josh, he wants to wait until probably sometime either early senior year or this time next year to make that decision. So obviously plenty of time for other schools to make moves. Oregon setting the pace. Maryland made a big move over the weekend. Let's see where he goes next to kind of figure out, again, follow those visits with a guy like Zion Elee. He wants to see new places and compare school to school.
Yeah. He mentioned don't sleep on Alabama. He grew up a Crimson Tide fan. He wants to get to campus to see it for himself in person. Speaking of following visits, Jackson Cantwell, he's been taking some. So I know he's been to Ole Miss. He's been to Nebraska. He's been to Georgia. I might be missing one. This weekend, though, he's expected to be at Alabama. So the #1 offensive tackle in America. What do you make of his recruitment early on?
Yeah, one place he's been this season is Missouri. Obviously, in-state school that would love nothing more than to keep him home next year in the Show Me State out there with Coach Drink. So, look, I think right now if there's one school kind of setting the pace, I would say Georgia. He keeps going back to Georgia. And like I asked him specifically a couple weeks ago after that trip to Athens about kind of what keeps him going back, and he couldn't really think of a good answer. Just think about just likes it there. He has a good time around the people. Obviously, Georgia's player development kind of speaks for itself, and they're, a national championship, battling program every year. But I think with Georgia, you have to think with Missouri, in-state school, as he's been there numerous times, has connections there with his family as well. Nebraska has connections there. He's been there multiple times to Lincoln. Upcoming trips to Alabama, LSU. He's a big SEC guy. I think Nebraska, obviously a Midwestern program that has his attention too, right there close to home, with tradition there and stuff like that. But if there's one school or a couple of schools, I think Georgia, Nebraska, at one time Oklahoma, they faded some a little bit early on with Jackson. But I think Georgia's that one school kind of setting the pace early here.
All right, now Jackson Cantwell will be at Alabama this weekend, so we'll want to see what he says coming out of that one. Let's move to the #3 ranked player in the country. He's our #1 ranked quarterback. That's Jared Curtis. He was also on this channel this week. Go find that video in one of our playlists. Go watch it. Jared Curtis, fresh off that decommitment from Georgia, names Oregon as leader. Another 2026 top 5 player with Oregon on top, but I got a feeling Georgia is not out of this. A lot of times when we see guys decommit, it generally means they're out, even though they might mention that there's still a program in the mix. But with Jared Curtis, I get a feeling that Georgia has a real shot to land him still. Inside Scoop listeners, we love Prize Picks. You know how to play. You pick 2 or more players, then select more or less on their stat line. Submit your lineup. It takes less than 60 seconds. And right now, if you play with $5, win or lose on that $5, you're going to have $50 in your account. Last week, I paired Shedeur Sanders on the more than on his passing yards, along with Ryan Williams on 68 yards receiving. I hit more than on that. He went for 73. And boom, I'm winning money. It's easy. Prize Picks, easy, fun, great way to play daily fantasy while you watch your favorite college football team. Let me know who you guys got in your lineup this week. I know Coach Prime said Travis Hunter is a go, so I'm probably going to take more than on his receiving yards. But in the comment section below, I need some winners. Let me know who we're playing in Prize Picks. And also, go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. Use promo code inside scoop to receive that guaranteed 50 when you play 5. So go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. Use promo code inside scoop. Receive $50 on 5. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Yeah, I mean, they love nothing more than to get him back in this class. I mean, he was actively recruiting guys to play with him at Georgia in this 2026 class just a month or 2 ago. So obviously, I think for him, he felt a little bit maybe guilty about, being committed, taking trips to USC, South Carolina, talking to other coaches, lining up future trips, future visits to, Alabama or Auburn or other places. So I think he wanted to take a step back and just kind of reopen his recruitment. Obviously, Oregon kind of speaks for itself. He named them the leader, but there's a lot of schools in the mix. You said Georgia, they have not gone away. They're definitely not out of the mix. But I think, a strong, SEC flavor, with South Carolina. He loves that coaching staff. Sees an opportunity there. I mean, he's going to Alabama, going to Auburn. I think numerous schools will work hard in the coming months to get him on campus and become a factor. But I think Oregon, Georgia, South Carolina are some schools to watch right now.
All right, from the #1 quarterback to the #1 ranked wide receiver, and we finally hit a committed player. Chris Henry Jr. out of Mater Dei in California. He goes 6'5", 195, and Chris Henry made an early commitment to Ohio State. Are there other teams that are trying to get involved in this one, and how do you consider Henry's commitment to the Buckeyes right now?
Yeah, there's been other teams for sure, with that S on their teams, being like USC, Oregon, Texas, schools like that have worked to try to get in the mix, get them on campus. But the one team is Oregon, probably the biggest competition for Ohio State. You know, Henry went down this season with an injury. He's not playing the rest of the year. That's limited some of his visits as well. So I think, you know, Ohio State got him on campus back in September. He was there in the summer. You know, I feel good about Ohio State's position here. He's from Ohio, loves Heartline. The receivers, you know, the room, the development kind of speaks for itself there at Ohio State. But if there's one school to watch, I see as competition for Ohio State right now, that's the University of Oregon. Since he went out there and moved from Ohio to the West Coast, he's been to Oregon a couple of times, and he likes the staff. He likes Junior Adams. Obviously, Oregon beat Ohio State in a big game earlier this month. But I think Ohio State has to feel good about their position, but Oregon is right now that team to watch.
Yeah. All right. So Chris Henry, one of two players in the top 10 that are committed. Moving on to number 5, Emmanuel Iheanacho. Now, he's from Baltimore, Maryland, goes 6'6.5", 350 pounds. He's ranked as our number 2 offensive tackle in the country, just behind Jackson Cantwell. Now, Iheanacho was expected to be at Tennessee over the weekend. Instead, he popped up at Maryland to watch that USC game. Still very early in his recruitment, but Chad, set the table here with Iheanacho.
Yeah, I think you hit it, Josh, very early. You know, he's at Georgetown Prep. He lives at a boarding school away from his family. So he's told me multiple times it's hard to get out and get on visit. And not just for him, but for his families to kind of reunite, get on the same trip, be on the same page. So, look, I think Maryland's very much in play. If there's one school that I like their position early, it's probably Penn State. He's been there multiple times, plans to go back at some point this season. He has a good connection with Coach Troutwine, the offensive line coach. Coach Franklin's involved as well. For him, academics will be a big factor. I mean, he did like Georgia back in the spring. He told me over the weekend that at one time Georgia was his top school. He loved that trip, seeing them spring practice, and he wants to get to multiple schools from Miami to other programs throughout the country that are still on his radar. Oregon's had him on campus as well. They're in play, but Penn State probably setting the pace. They've had him on campus multiple times. He likes the staff. He feels good there, but it's going to come down to where he and his family can get to, whether it's now in the fall or for official visits in the spring and summer. His parents will play a big role in his recruitment.
All right, let's move on to number 6. We have another committed prospect. It's Diabell, the quarterback from American Heritage, committed to Texas over the summer. He's 6'3", 190. Now, he's been back to Austin a couple times. He seems rock solid. So we're going to move on to number 7 here, and you got Blaine Bradford, the number 1 safety in America. Kind of interesting. His older brother flipped from Houston to LSU just a couple weeks ago. So Blaine Bradford, number 1 safety in America from the state of Louisiana. Is LSU the team to beat here?
Clearly, Josh. I mean, he's from Louisiana. He's from Baton Rouge, plays a program like Catholic right there in their own backyard at LSU. His brother flipping from Houston to LSU only helps their chances. I mean, even before his brother was committed to LSU, I think most of us in the industry liked where LSU set. Of course, there's been Texas involved, Notre Dame, some other programs too, but he likes the new staff. Blaine Baker and the defensive staff at LSU has made him a top priority. He's been there double-digit times, easy to get to, and now his brother's there as well. I think for me, it's only a matter of time, we feel like, before Blaine jumps in and kind of joins his brother.
All right, let's move on to number 8 out in California. We got Brandon Arrington, the nation's number 1 athlete. He goes 6', 180. Now, Brandon Arrington sat down. He's going to be in an interview on the show. It'll be later in the show, so you want to catch that. But, Chad, catch us up on Brandon Arrington out of La Mesa, California.
We say it all the time, Josh, you know, follow the visits. You know, he's going back this weekend to Texas A&M. He's been there already this season. He was there over the summer. I did a story about him earlier this year or this fall about A&M being his top school. I don't think anything has changed there. The people, the fan base, the support, the opportunity to see the field, I think all appeal to Arrington when talking about the Texas A&M football program under Mike Elko. Oklahoma's been a school mentioned. Oregon I've heard some things about as well. He's been to Nebraska also for a visit. But I think right now there's some separation between Texas A&M and everybody else.
All right, yeah, big weekend out at A&M, and Brandon Arrington, top 10 player in America, will be a part of it. All right, let's move on to the number 2 ranked wide receiver in America, number 9 overall out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Another stud receiver in Mississippi, Tristan Keys, set the table for his recruitment.
He was just at Tennessee for the Florida game where they tore down the goalpost in overtime. And the night before that, an interesting note is he was off that week. He flew over to North Carolina to watch Faison Brandon, the quarterback committed to Tennessee. And they've become quite the pair, and they talk a lot and communicate, and they built that relationship and that connection. So right now, I'm liking where Tennessee sits, for Tristan Keys. Look, he's going to be a coveted receiver in this class. And you have to think, obviously, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, 2 in-state programs are going to do all they can to get him on campus. Ole Miss wanted him on campus this weekend, but instead he's going to Texas A&M. So A&M's involved. Alabama, he's listed as well. Auburn, he's talked about Florida State multiple times. LSU. So still a pretty big crop of schools that are in play for Tristan Keys. But after that recent trip to Tennessee for the Florida game and his time with Faison Brandon, the receivers coach Kendall Pope at Tennessee, the offense under Josh Heupel, I like where the Vols sit right now, Josh, for Tristan Keys.
Yeah, he's explosive at 6'3", 170. I've been exchanging some messages with Keys. I think we're going to have an interview on this channel with him this week. All right, let's move to number 10. We got P.J. Dean, a people mover in the middle. The number 1 interior offensive lineman in America. He goes 6'3.5", 305 pounds. He's out of North Carolina. Chad, what are you hearing on Dean's recruitment early on?
Yeah, he's a loud guy on the field that loves to pancake guys and be physical and loud and disruptive. But off the field, he's very quiet about his recruitment. Doesn't take a lot of visits, doesn't do a lot of interviews. And I spoke with him this week, and he named 3 schools for me. And that starts with Georgia. His brother, Jared Wilson, starts at center at the University of Georgia. They're connected, obviously. He's been around Coach Searles in that program more than anywhere else. So I like where Georgia's at right now, kind of setting the pace here in this recruitment. But he also mentioned Alabama. He was there for a game earlier this fall. He likes Coach Cap, the O-line coach there in Tuscaloosa. He likes SEC football. Then he mentioned Ohio State. He hasn't been to Columbus yet. He'd love to get there for the Michigan game if possible next month in November, but he likes their development, their program, and the offensive line under Justin Fry. But right now, if you had to pick a favorite, if I did, I'd lean Georgia's way because of the brother there having success. And he's been there a lot. He feels very comfortable with the staff, with Coach Searles, Coach Smart, and those guys. But he plans to kind of take this thing slow, take visits in the spring, OVs in the summer, and then make his decision.
All right, there you have it. That is a rundown of the top 10 in the 2026 class. These are the On3 rankings, which were updated by Charles Power on Monday. So wanted to catch you guys up, get you brought up to speed on where things stand in the top 10. So let us know in the comment section below, how many of these guys is your team going to land? Let us know, comment section below. Let's talk some Michigan recruiting because Monday night, the Wolverines landed the last available 5-star offensive lineman in the 2025 class. That's right. Andrew Babalola finally committed to Michigan. Now, this was a battle that had been raging for several months, but Michigan ends up on top. We're going to break that down. Also, a big visit weekend on tap in Ann Arbor as Michigan State comes to town. We got E.J. Holland from the Wolverine on this video, and we are going to go behind the scenes of the biggest Michigan recruiting developments. But first, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. We want you guys to jump on board. Hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring in E.J. Holland. So Monday night, 5-star Andrew Babalola off the board to Michigan. Take us behind the scenes. How were the Wolverines able to get it done?
Yeah, plenty of fireworks around Michigan. Biggest recruiting win in quite some time. In fact, Andrew Babalola is the first 5-star commit for the Wolverines since Will Johnson in the 2022 recruiting class. So it has been a while for Michigan fans who have been craving this big-time recruiting win. And that's what you're getting in Andrew Babalola. You're getting one of the nation's premier tackles, a true 5-star talent, a potential first-round draft pick like my guy Charles Power, our On3 rankings director, talked about over at the Wolverine. I mean, he's just a guy that can be that rare true freshman who could come in and start right away for Michigan. I mean, as far as how they won this recruitment, it was an interesting one. Obviously, Michigan continued to be the constant in this recruitment despite a series of delays. If you remember, Babalola was considered a Stanford lean in the summer. He continued to push things back. Auburn tried to make a late run, and Auburn obviously has a ton of NIL to work with, but I think Michigan was just that school that offered the best of both worlds for him. High-level academics, high-level development on the football field, and NIL didn't become that factor that maybe it would have become for other 5 stars in this era. So I think Michigan did do well with NIL, or well enough, but the 2 main factors for Babalola were always development, education, and Michigan has that. And plus, you have a head coach in Sharon Moore, who was also previously the offensive line coach, who is also from Kansas, and that played a big role for Babalola as well. So just all around fantastic job by the Michigan staff and just the Michigan program in this recruitment. And like I said, just a huge win for the Wolverines.
Yeah, absolutely a huge win. Oklahoma, also a team that tried to get in there, but Michigan, they closed the door. They get it done. There was a lot of delays. You're right. There was so many. I mean, how many weeks did we hear this is going to be the week that Andrew Babalola decides, only for it not to be the week? But he gets it done on Monday night, announces that he is a Michigan Wolverine. All right, so this weekend, I teased it. I said it's going to be a big visit weekend. One of the premier names on campus, 4-star safety Jordan Young. He's one of the remaining uncommitted DBs in America, top 150 prospect, and it's going to be his last visit before his November 2nd decision. So how important of a trip is this for Michigan?
It's a really important trip. It's a recruitment that is very interesting for Michigan in the sense that they brought him in for an official visit in the summer, and then both parties kind of just went their separate ways for a few months. Michigan reemerged as a contender. They decided, hey, let's go back after Jordan Young. We have 2 safety commits we really like in Ivan Taylor and Kainoa Winston. We have that tall, long corner in Jaden Sanders. Let's go after Young as a nickel. They really like his athleticism. They like his ball skills. They like his upside. And so he's now that top guy as the nickel for this class. Now, will Michigan land him? I think a lot depends on this visit. They're kind of having to play catch up from those few months they lost where there wasn't a ton of, push from the Wolverines. But I think Michigan secondary coach Lamar Morgan has done a really nice job here. They do get his last visit before he makes his decision on November 2nd, which is always a plus. I think right now, though, NC State has a lot of momentum. It's the school closer to home, but they're also offering him the opportunity to go both ways, to play on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver. And that's something that hasn't really been discussed with Michigan. So I'm curious to see how much Michigan gets wide receivers coach Ron Bellamy involved, if they do give him the opportunity to play wide receiver. Clemson just had him on campus for a visit. So still some moving parts with Michigan. Like I said, they're kind of playing catch up. The offensive piece is something that's a bit of a curveball for them, but I think they'll be able to answer a lot of questions on this visit. And again, it's important to note that it is the last visit before he makes a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 prospects I want to talk about that are actually committed to Michigan, but they could be potential flip targets for Alabama. Ivan Taylor and tight end Andrew Olish. You just hit on Taylor and how important he is to this class. What do you make of Bama's pursuit of both of these commits? Hey, Inside Scoop listeners and football fans, out at the FSU and UNC game next weekend? Well, whether you're cheering on the Noles or the Tar Heels on November 2nd, plan for a pit stop at the Whataburger food truck during your tailgate. Get ready to watch your team by securing an easy W first with a hot, fresh Whataburger, that is. And no matter who comes out on top, when you take your team to Whataburger, you know what it feels like to be a winner by getting your food made your way, fresh and hot, every time, 24/7. See you at the game and see you at Whataburger.
Yeah, starting off with Ivan Taylor, Alabama was a school that a lot of people thought he was going to flip to when he was committed to Notre Dame. Obviously, he ended up flipping to Michigan. Now, Alabama has never given up in this recruitment. They got him on campus for that game against Georgia last month and made a positive impression on him and his father. And I think they've really moved the needle with Ike Taylor, who many of you will remember is a former All-Pro. But I think Alabama still has to win over his mom. She did not join them on that visit to Bama. She will, or is expected to be on campus. The entire family is expected to be on campus this weekend for the Michigan State game. So I think that's a positive. He also visited Michigan in September for the game against Texas. So I think it's a close battle. I think he likes kind of that professional aspect of Alabama. Ivan grew up around training camp with the Pittsburgh Steelers, seeing his father play and what an NFL operation looks like. I think that's kind of what you get with Alabama, and that's why that's such an appealing school for him and his dad. But at the same time, Ivan's a really high academic kid. He's connected really well with the coaching staff. He loves what Michigan has to offer on and off the field. He likes the fact that he's a great scheme fit for Michigan, and they're recruiting him as a pure safety and not a nickel. So yeah, I think there are still a lot of positive indicators for Michigan, but definitely not dismissing Alabama. I think it's a close race. And in terms of Andrew Olesh, I'm not sure how big of a factor Bama will be moving forward. They just landed Marshall Pritchett, flipped him from North Carolina. So, they have 2 tight ends committed. But, that doesn't mean Michigan fans need to stop worrying about Andrew Olesh. He might visit Oregon this weekend. In fact, I was texting with his father, George, earlier today, and he told me they're in the process of trying to finalize that trip to Oregon for this weekend. So Oregon is one to watch. And then on top of that, you have Penn State. James Franklin visited him at his high school last week, and Penn State is set to get him on campus on November 2nd for their game against Ohio State. So those are the 2 schools, even though, again, Alabama might not be as involved, those 2 schools are the ones that I'm really keeping an eye on moving forward.
All right. So another name that I found interesting that's going to be on campus is Benny Patterson. He's a defensive lineman that's committed to Cincinnati, and because he's at a premier position like defensive line, a lot of teams have been coming after him. I know he made a trip out to USC. There's others trying to flip him, but this weekend he'll be in Ann Arbor. Is he a priority for Michigan?
Yeah, I think with Michigan and defensive line recruiting, it's kind of interesting. They are looking for a couple of late risers. I think they want to take 2 more along the defensive line. Benny Patterson is definitely one. Quante Gillians, who's committed to Syracuse, is another defensive lineman coming in. That's part of the 2025 recruiting class. So, yeah, they're looking at potential flip targets. They had Tristan Abram, who's committed to Indiana on campus last month. So, yeah, they're kind of just sorting through some options right now. Defensive line coach Lou Esposito has been hard at work evaluating some of these guys, building relationships behind the scenes. They're set to get some more kind of under the radar late senior risers on campus next weekend for that game against Oregon. So I don't want to say that Benny Patterson is a true, must land priority right now, but he's a guy they really like. And they like a lot of these senior, evaluations they've made. It's just going to come down to how some of these visits go, getting to see some of these guys in person as well. Esposito was on the road during the bye week and just kind of sizing them up. But yeah, I think with all these late senior risers, it's more of a wait and see how the visits go, continue to evaluate them and see who ends up in the class, because there are, around 8 options right now that fit that description.
Yeah, absolutely. So big weekend up in Ann Arbor. We'll see. The week started off with some big fireworks. We'll see if they can end the week with some big fireworks. A win over Michigan State would go a long way. So Michigan fans, talk to us, comment section below. Who's your top targets going to be on campus this weekend? And also, are you celebrating the Andrew Babalola 5-star commitment? Let us know, comment section below. Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We got a very special guest on threes. Number 1 overall player in the 2026 class, Zion Elee, joins us from St. Francis Academy in Maryland. He goes 6'3", 225 pounds. Zion, welcome to the Inside Scoop. Thanks for your time.
What's up? It's a blessing.
All right. So we named you on threes, not just number 1 player at your position, but number 1 overall in the 2026 cycle. What does that mean to you?
Man, it means a lot, man, for people to finally see all of my hard work, everything I've been doing over the summer pay off. Everything's coming to light. Everybody just saying it, and it's right in front of my eyes.
Yeah, must feel really good to put that work in and see the results. So what exactly were you working on this offseason? Because it paid off.
I've been working on a lot, actually. I've been going from D-line trainer to D-line trainer. I've been doing endurance training. I've been doing weightlifting. I started getting more maxes on the bench, squatting more, doing more agility training. I've just been working on my moves, too. I'm trying to perfect my craft every day, all day in the summer. And I'm going to continue to do that this summer. And this offseason is going to be crazy.
All right. What are you trying to accomplish before you get out of high school?
Before I get out of high school, I really just want to have the most sacks at a school, break a record, what I'm saying? At St. Francis, I'm definitely trying to break the St. Francis record. The transfer from Joppatown to St. Francis, clearly it's a higher level of competition. And I just want to be able to dominate at this high level of competition here and not just at a low competition level at Joppatown.
Yeah, and you are absolutely one of the most dangerous pass rushers in America. Is there anybody on the college or NFL level that you really enjoy watching?
I actually kind of watch a little bit of Max Crosby. I'm saying I like his cross chop. I really like what he does, so I really get my game from him recently.
All right, so let's switch it over to recruiting a little bit. You're the #1 recruit in America. I'm sure everybody's knocking at your door. How's recruiting going for you? Is this still a fun process, or is it becoming a lot?
Yeah, it is a fun process. All the colleges talking to me. Recently, I've been in communication with a few. Day by day, it changes. More colleges are talking to me. More colleges stop talking to me. But right now, have a couple visits set up, building more relationships with more colleges and starting to open up my recruitment and dropping that top 5.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you're going to find the best fit for you is making visits. This weekend, you took a great visit. You were at Maryland for that USC game. How was that trip, and what other visits from this fall have stood out to you?
The Maryland visit was amazing. I ain't gonna lie. I've been to Maryland 3 times, and this was actually the best time I visited Maryland. They played a really good game. I talked to a lot of coaches there. They were just really pushing me to come, and I was feeling it. I really liked that visit.
What's Mike Loxley like? Have you had a chance to get to know him?
Yeah, before the game, I had a conversation with him. He was really telling me to stay home. He was telling me about. We relate since we're both from Maryland. He was really just telling me about how all the kids in Maryland would go to other schools instead of staying at home. Everybody want to go out the country out the state, and they can stay home and build something. It could really be something.
Yeah, and hey, teams from across the country are recruiting you. One of the teams that's been buzzing is Oregon. How's your relationship with Dan Lanning and the Ducks coaching staff?
Recently, we've been building a strong relationship. We've been talking more frequently. When I went down to a visit, that's when I had a real long conversation with him about where we stand with each other. And yeah, it's just been going good. Oregon has just been pushing me the most lately.
So where does Oregon stand with you? Are they your leader right now?
I would say Oregon is my leader, but then again, I've recently started thinking about Maryland. I recently had Maryland in consideration, so I would say Maryland and Oregon really top right now.
Yeah. Is there any other teams that you would put in with that top group right now?
I've recently been in communication with Miami, Texas A&M, Penn State, Ohio State, so schools around that. Yeah, I put them up there.
Right. So any other visits that you want to take before the season's over?
For sure. I want to go to Alabama. Alabama's been a favorite since I was a kid, and I just want to see the campus for myself in real life.
Yeah. So you got all these schools. So I understand why you kind of backed off that top 5. So what do you think is the next step for you? Are you going to narrow the list? Are you going to make a decision? Where are you at in your timeline?
In my timeline, I think I was moving too fast. I think I got to slow down and really collect all the knowledge about this recruit. recruiting stuff first because I realized I'm really big recruiting. I just got to slow down. And I'm probably not going to make the top 5 till the end of my senior year. No, like middle of my senior year, senior summer. You know what I'm saying? The summer going into the senior year.
So this is going to be a really important off season for you. I imagine you're going to get on a bunch of campuses. You're going to do a lot of things. When Zion Elee's choosing a school, what's one of the most important factors to you?
One of the most important factors to me is honestly like the campus, how far everything is. I like something nice, simple. You know what I'm saying? Also the development, how to develop edges or players in my position in general. Where are they going to put me? How are they going to treat me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this is a good kind of insight into your early recruitment. Is there any teams that we didn't talk about that maybe we should be talking about when it comes to your recruitment?
I mean, not off the top of my head, but yeah, like I was talking about earlier, Alabama, they're definitely up there.
Don't sleep on the Crimson Tide. All right, Zion Elee, On3's #1 overall player. Thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop, taking a little bit of time out of your day. We really appreciate this.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me on there.
Welcome into the Inside Scoop. We got a really special interview right now. We got On3's #1 athlete in the 2026, Brandon Arrington. He goes 6', 180. He's out of La Mesa, California. Brandon, welcome to the Inside Scoop. How you doing?
Doing good.
All right. So we saw the On3 2026 rankings were updated on Monday. You're the #1 athlete in America. What does that mean to you?
I mean, it feels good, all the hard work I've been putting in. It's just showing that it's paying off, and it just feels great.
Yeah, junior season going great. What work did you put in this offseason? What particularly were you working on?
I was working on, my routes, my covering skills, and just playing off because, I like to press a lot, but I never really practiced on playing off like that. So I was just working on my craft, playing off, and working on my routes, running my deep routes, stuff like that. So stuff like that.
Right. So a lot of work on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of work on the offensive side of the ball. When it comes to colleges, when they talk to you, what position do they project you at?
Usually both staffs, they both project me as a DB or receiver. So it's like both, but it's going to be my decision for at the end of the road.
Yeah. And, you're the #1 athlete in America. And at some point, you're not just a great athlete. You're going to have to play a position. So when you get to the next level, do you think you want to star on offense or defense?
I haven't really made that decision yet, but, whatever works out for me at the end.
All right. So let's talk a little recruiting. You got teams from all over the country recruiting you. What visits have you taken this season?
I went to Oklahoma, Alabama, USC, Texas A&M, and Nebraska. That's the visit I take this summer.
Yeah, so you've been to a good bit. I mean, you've gotten out and seen some schools. What atmosphere really stood out to you?
I'll say Texas A&M. Like their fan base is like insane. Like it was just insane just being there and watching everything. It was crazy.
Yeah. What other schools would you say early on you have a great relationship with that coaching staff?
I'll say Alabama, Texas A&M, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Oregon. Like I have a good relationship with all these schools. Like they stay locked in, tapping in. Trying to get me out there for games, stuff like that. So it's just those are the main schools who be on me the most.
How about the USC Trojans, the in-state USC Trojans? Yeah. They involved with you?
Yeah, they involved with me, but unfortunately I've only got to make like one. I only been there one time because my little brother's been having a lot of football games and my dad couldn't have made it, so it's just been hard to get out.
And you're going to have a great opportunity this spring and into the summer to go take some trips. So what other schools, even maybe that you have already visited, but who do you know? Like, hey, I want to go check them out as soon as my season's over. Hey, Inside Scoop fans and college football recruiting nuts. It's time to upgrade your audio game. You may have a pair of headphones you like, but the battery life, it's too short or they just don't stay in your ears. or you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars every time you lose an earbud, enter JLab. JLab is creating headphones, earbuds, and work accessories designed for everyday lifestyle. You guys know the best of the best are wearing them, from Travis Hunter to Ohio State's Will Howard to Quinshon Judkins. So for travel, here's what we recommend: the JBud Luxe over-ear headphones. If you're working out, get the JLab JBuds Sport ANC4, offering a secure fit and a super long battery life for those tough workouts. Discover your perfect pair of headphones. Look for the JLab Blue Box at retailers everywhere, or visit jlab.com.
I'll say Ohio State, Oregon, and Tennessee, because I haven't been to those campuses yet, and I want to just check it out.
Mm-hmm. So when do you think you want to make a decision?
I'll say probably the end of my junior year.
Okay, so maybe soon.
Yeah.
Like you think maybe in the next couple months you could make your final decision?
Yeah, probably like somewhere near track season. I'll say basketball season.
Gotcha. All right. So when it comes to Brandon Arrington making this decision, what's most important to you when choosing a school?
I'll say, just feeling love, just coaches being on me, showing that they really want me, a great coach with a great history that gets people to the league, because that's where I want to go, in a few more years, so I feel like that's the most important thing, that's going to help me in college. So, just development, stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. So if we're nearing down to your end of your decision here, do you have a leader? Do you have one team that maybe stands out from the rest? I'll
say Texas A&M in Oklahoma. They just be on me, and it was just fun being out there. Like, they showed me the most love when I was out there, and it just felt good being out there.
Okay, cool. And both programs just recruiting you as an athlete, get you on campus and figure it out later?
Yep.
All right. Well, so you think that maybe you're like 6, 7, 8 weeks from a decision?
Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah.
All right. That's a big one. Well, hey, if you want to do it right here on the On3 platform,
hey,
just let me know.
Hey, y'all showed the most love too. So, might as well.
Absolutely. All right, Brandon. Well, we appreciate you sitting down with us on the Inside Scoop. Appreciate the insight into your recruitment. Good luck with the rest of your season. And hey, if you ever need anything, we're right here.
Yes, sir.